it's Dr. Know-It-All coming to you from snowy Utah again, where I had a blast at Park City yesterday. Today I'm going to Alta, so that should be a lot of fun as well. And I'm actually starting to see some sun out. It has been very snowy and cloudy lately, so that's actually really cool to see some sun coming out. So I'm looking forward to it, but I did want to touch on this article from Yahoo Finance that came out. I don't know exactly when because I don't see a date on this. Let me actually check that. March 6th. So yeah, so basically yesterday. So anyway, this came out. This is essentially a rehashing of old arguments that we've seen for many years. But yet again, we have another, article about how Tesla has only itself to blame for eroding its EV advantage, said auto reviewer DeMuro. And I actually thought this was going to be about their supercharger network, but which actually, there's an argument to be made about the fact that Tesla is eroding one of the major differentiators in the fact that they are expanding their supercharger network to the general populace now, so that there are a lot of other EVs that can charge at the new superchargers that have the magic docks, which is really cool. But of course, then there's the counter argument from Tesla, which is that they are supposed to be accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. So there you go. So anyway, that's a reasonable argument, but this actually is much less interesting than that, I guess, let's say. So here we go. Tesla may be losing traction among buyers as competition for electric vehicles heats up. And of course, I'll put a link to the original in the description as well. Auto reviewer and Cars and Bids auction platform founder Doug DeMuro points to Tesla's disappointing pipeline of new vehicle announcements. Here we go. That's the rehash of the old announcements, and the lack of updates to its existing lineup. Tesla hasn't really shown us anything like they used to, where they can just drop something and wow everybody and stay years ahead, says DeMuro to Yahoo Finance Live. So let's just take a moment to break this down. Number one, no new vehicles. That's not really true. If you look at the recent evidence from Toyota, their sort of internal discussion about the new Model Y that came out, and I made a joke about why couldn't they have broken down the Model Y years ago, but what they did was recently they broke down a new Model Y, I think with a structural battery pack. That's what it sounds like. So this is a new made in Texas Model Y, which is quite different than the version that I have that was made in the end of 2020 in Fremont, California. And they called it a work of art, and massive differences. So what you're looking at is a vehicle that is very, very different than the one that I drove just a couple of years ago. It's still called a Model Y, and I'm filming this on an iPhone, so I guess it is an iPhone 13, so there is like an actual number attached to this. But, to say that this is the same as the 2007 iPhone that came out originally is pretty ridiculous. So this is a specious argument to say that just because they haven't introduced the Model Z or something like that they don't have new Teslas. And also the idea that they could just drop something new and wow everybody is kind of crazy, because if you look at like the semi-truck, that took 4 years to come out, 5 years, something like that. It took a long time. The Model 3 took a really long time. Now the Model Y did come out very, very quickly, but that was because it was basically the Model 3 over again. So the idea that somehow Tesla was magically able to create these vehicles at mass scale like that is kind of ridiculous. So we're going to get to the Cybertruck in a second. So anyway, we'll talk about that in just a moment. Anyway, the competition among automakers for EV buyers has intensified recently, with entries from companies like Rivian aiming for the pickup and rugged truck market. I don't know if the Rivian would be considered a rugged truck. And industry stalwarts like Ford, VW, General Motors offering vehicles like the GMC Hummer EV. DeMuro says the competition has eroded Tesla's first mover advantage, with some of the blame attributed to Tesla's lack of new updates in nearly a decade. Nearly a decade is pretty insane. I mean, even the Model Y came out in 2020. That's 3 years, folks. That's not nearly a decade. So I think that's a little crazy. And of course, the Cybertruck is slated to come out this year, so that looks like something that will happen. And we've got the Semi. It's not a consumer vehicle, but you do have something like that. And plus the fact, when you look at these vehicles that he talks about, the Rivian and the GMC Hummer, those vehicles have sold in the small thousands of vehicles. I don't even know if the Hummer has sold 1,000 vehicles yet. So we're looking at an entirely different scale. To say the competition has come for Tesla is a little bit crazy. Now, the F-150 Lightning, if he had talked about that actually has sold a decent amount. And the VW ID3, ID4 have sold a decent amount. So those are more competitive. But to say things like, Rivian and GMC Hummer in particular, that's a little ridiculous. I love the Rivian, by the way. I've seen some in the wild. I've had a chance to talk to the owners. They look like just amazing cars. But you have to admit that they're not selling these things in massive numbers, so it's not a huge amount of competition to Tesla just yet. And also, Tesla doesn't have a truck yet, so it's not even in that market yet. DeMuro points to Tesla's pickup as one example. The Cybertruck, which has been touted and vaunted for years, is late. Yes, it is definitely late. Rivian is already out with a pickup. GM is out with a pickup. Ford has the Lightning. So the Ford actually has sold in the tens of thousands of vehicles. I don't have a good number on hand right now in my head, but they have sold in the tens of thousands of vehicles. The other ones, and Rivian has sold a few, I think over 10,000 vehicles at this point. So we're looking at some vehicles out there. But the deal is if and when it'll be when Tesla starts to ramp up the Cybertruck, we're going to be looking at hundreds of thousands of vehicles a year. So we're talking about those kinds of scales by, say, 2024 at the latest. And whether the other companies can catch up and maintain that sort of business is a little bit of a question mark. The other thing about this is that we're looking at vehicles that are competing with ICE vehicles, not with each other as much. So yes, Tesla may be losing some of its first mover advantage, but really what we're looking at is vehicles taking the place of internal combustion engine vehicles. And there's a really big market for that because there are millions of trucks sold per year. So they don't necessarily have to eat each other's lunch. They can eat ICE's lunch. So, all of these arguments are old and they feel rehashed. And to talk about trucks that have sold in the thousands to tens of thousands as competition to a product that admittedly Tesla doesn't have yet is a little bit specious. Anyway, when Tesla introduced new vehicles, it was so far ahead of everybody else you couldn't catch up to Tesla, says DeMuro. In the ensuing 10 years, people have caught up to Tesla. So again, we go back to that Toyota teardown where they said this is a work of art, and they're like, wow, we're going to have to redo everything, and it was very humbling and all of that. So even if under the hood, or even if over the hood it looks the same, under the hood, everything Tesla is doing, people are going, we don't know how to catch up with this. So again, kind of a specious argument. We have a video transcript. I'll read little bits of this anyway. When Tesla first came out with the Model S 10 years ago, believe it or not, it's been over 10 years, it was so far ahead of everybody else you couldn't catch up to Tesla. And there was no possible way to catch up to Tesla. And in the ensuing 10 years, people have caught up to Tesla. And like you said, they haven't come out with a lot of new exciting models recently. Tesla hasn't really shown us anything like they used to, where they could just drop something and wow everybody and stay years ahead. And it's not quite like that as much anymore. So first of all, yes, that is expected, because when Tesla released the Model S, nobody had an EV except the Nissan Leaf, which was not competitive with the Model S in terms of quality of car or cost at the same time. So anyway, you are looking at a different world, but to say that they've just caught up and Tesla stood still and hasn't released anything since the original Model S is ridiculous. Plus the fact the Model S isn't the Model S anymore. Yes, it's still called the same thing, but it's a completely different car at this point. So anyway, I worry the competitive advantage. They no longer have the only electric cars with long range. True. They no longer have the only driver assist technology that can really do a great job of driving for you in a lot of situations. I don't agree with that. I think that is not true. I think there are a lot of other companies that make vehicles that have some driver assist packages, but they are not at all equivalent to Tesla. And I would certainly be willing to debate that with him, try to show me evidence of other ADAS systems that are working as well as Tesla's ADAS system. And then, of course, the Cybertruck is years late. I mean, ultimately, Rivian is already out with a pickup. GM is out with a pickup. Ford has the Lightning. I would say that GM's Hummer it's just sold so few cars, it doesn't really count. So Ford and Rivian for sure are competition. But again, the Cybertruck has a lot of pre-orders, well over 1 million, maybe 1.5 million. And Tesla's going to be fulfilling those orders for years, even if 50% of people drop the orders. And I don't think they're going to anymore, because people are only more excited about it now. So they have hundreds of thousands to close to 1 million vehicles that they can produce just with the pre-orders before they even have to get to new owners or anything. So the question of whether Rivian or Ford can ramp up to the huge numbers faster than Tesla, first of all, it's a big question. Second of all, I don't know if it matters, because like I said, we're looking at something where it's like the competition is internal combustion engine vehicles, not other EVs at this point. So anyway, they don't have as much first mover advantage. Here's the interesting thing that comes out. Excuse me. Like I said, travel, snow, cold weather, things like that. Brian Sozi asks, who do you think Tesla's biggest competitor is, Doug? We always think about we're comparing Tesla to Lucid, but Lucid's really not making any cars, and that's actually a good point. Polestar is making cars, but they don't seem to compare with Tesla. Polestar, by the way, is making really good cars. Really, good stuff, all of that. So DeMuro says this is a great question, and then proceeds to kind of dodge it. It depends on the segment you're in, and also just some brands come out I mean, Rivian will be a good competitor in the truck space, but they have nothing to compete with the Model 3. Yes, Polestar is competitive with the Model 3, but they have nothing to compete with, SUVs. So that's, he's saying that the competition is coming, and then when he's asked what is the competition, he says it's going to be here sometime, right? The Mach E, that's competitive with the Model Y, I suppose. Yes, it is. And GM and Ford are very committed to an electric vehicle strategy that is going to make them continually kind of banging at Tesla's doors over the next few years. So you have somebody saying the competition is coming, and then somebody says, what is the competition that's coming? And he's like, oh, all of these things are going to come in the future. It's just the same old again, right? So again, I just sort of wanted to report on this because I think, unfortunately, a lot of people just read these articles or read the headlines, and usually it's a lot of times just read the headlines, and people are like, oh no, the competition has come for Tesla, and they will no longer, have this advantage. They have all the advantage, and the advantage is only growing. I think that's basically what you can say about this. One other thing I just wanted to say really quickly, and I will leave a link to this in the description as well, is that Scott Walter, who is a huge friend of the channel, has been very wonderful. I said yesterday how Ellie Sharif, Ellie in Space, she broke her femur climbing in a freak accident, had to have surgery. There is a GoFundMe campaign that Scott started to help her with the costs because she does not have very good medical insurance. And if you don't know about the US, if you don't have good medical insurance, you can go broke trying to pay for something this expensive. So she had to have surgery to have her leg fixed, and it's going to have, physical therapy, hospital stay, all of that stuff. So anyway, if you do have the ability to help her, then definitely check out the link in the description. And, even if you donate $5 or something like that, whatever it is, if you can help out with that, I'm sure she would very much appreciate it. And I'm sure Scott would appreciate that too. And I would appreciate it too. So anyway, I wanted to let you all know about that as a final thing. She did come through surgery great, and I expect she will recover super quickly because she's very strong. So anyway, best of luck to her. We're all rooting for you. And she's, I believe, doing a live stream on Thursday. So definitely try to tune in for that and give her a lot of support if you are able to. In the meantime, everybody have a lovely day. It is now 8 o'clock and I am going skiing. So I will see you all later. Bye-bye.